Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Two-Shot Factor. Pink Eye Power. Yes, as you can see, I have the hantavirus. This is not just meningitis. Derek Two-Shot is going down with the ship. So basically I didn't drink for 45 days. I do like to have a little bit of vacation time. That's quite a long time. I didn't smoke for 45 days either because, as you may or may not know, I only smoke cigarettes when I drink.
I only smoke when I drink.
And then I wound up delayed hungover and puking all over the side of the road. I started feeling like I got a cold that went away. I started feeling sick again, woke up in the morning, and then started all of a sudden getting pink eye. We have some footage of that, Carlos?
Face to face with greatness and its strange.
Pink eye is an inflammation or infection of the transparent membrane, conjunctiva, that lines your eyelid and covers the white part of the eyeball.
Derek Two-Shot pretends to be smart by reading stuff straight from Google.
That's what I have had, I do have, and no, I haven't been crying. Also not on lots of weed. Now, all this sickness has really made me want to talk about my old weightlifting days. Recently, secretly, I've been doing a little bit of working out. I used to actually weightlift quite a bit. In fact, at one time, I was a regular and avid fan and believer of Olympic-style weightlifting. I used to weightlift quite a bit, like, I just want to get on the level with you here. I just thought it was interesting at first. I had seen it before. I mean, just about everybody has it one time. They've seen, we use an Olympic bar. Yeah, 9 out of 10 people will probably never even attempt any kind of Olympic lift in their life.
Gonna be sore in the morning.
The fact of the matter is, most of you in your whole life will never really learn much about it at all. You'll always hear these questions like, what body parts does it work out? Why do you do this lift? How come you don't do bench? How much do you bench? And then you might say, benches are for sitting on.
If you are a beginner, you should be looking to bench press at least your body weight.
What? Or, now, like, I used to do all the normal bodybuilding type workouts. In 2008, I started really thinking I was going to be this Olympic weightlifter. From 2008 and 9, I really got this big thing into my... I was just throwing that into my whole program. I was still doing all the normal, like, lateral raises, shoulder presses. That's really tasty. I've got kind of a sniffly nose.
It's getting better though.
The rate of survival with Ebola is very low.
But there was a big misunderstanding with this stuff as it happened. Now through the next couple of years, as I gradually made a transition into this and started doing it more full-time,
In 20
by about
minutes.
2010, I started going to this gym called Semi, which is short for Semi-Amu. It's a part of South Surrey, White Rock area, and there's the Semi Weightlifting Club, which I was a part of for a while. Since I didn't have a car, I could only really get there on Saturday morning, so I'd have to take a bus. Actually, about 2 hours I think to Fleetwood, and it's about a half-hour bus ride down to South Surrey. And then I walk for 15, 20 minutes or something to the high school. So we're looking at nearly 3 hours travel, then a workout for 2 hours and some sometimes, then go back, get a bus, and within 15, 20 minutes, basically another 2.5. So basically we're looking at 8 to 9 hours of a day after Friday, which I always drank on, even though sometimes I try to tone it down. So I could only do this sometimes. But most of the working out I did was not in an appropriate place like that. It was in gyms in Mission and the Abbotsford. Some which were more welcoming and some not. And then the Inform gym, that place became more welcoming. And I did it at lower traffic area times of the day, usually around 12 to 2. Always, I think about that time was always a pretty dead time. Because you're right after lunch, in between when school and work gets off. Getting your arms like that when you snatch the bar, and the bar's like that behind you. There was a girl, Louisa, who's like the head manager of the gym. She asked me one time, why do you always, when you do this lift, have your arms so wide? And this is what I hate. These people look at me, first of all, just some guy. Second of all, some guy that's a little weird. Third of all, some weird guy. Oh, wait, West Side? And then he gets in arguments because he's trying to explain himself to the very guy who's asking him about it with Jason, the top manager guy of the whole gym. And yet this person, Louisa, is asking you questions like, why are your arms like this and why not more in?
A more narrow grip adds more compromise if the weight moves backward, which happens with neophytes and beginners. A simple example is this. When we were in youth sports warming up, we stood up and held our arms out wide and made circles. Try doing this with your arms straight above. Can't do it.
Because when you're bringing it back, because when you go like this, your arms go out, they don't go in. You know, that'd be like a narrow grip, and when your arms are back like that, with any kind of weight, that's a pretty dangerous thing. I mean, you've seen what can happen when people do snatches in the Olympics, and let me explain to you, these are guys who are just, you know, going for broke, that are like the strongest guys, that are the strongest guys or girls in the world, depending on, and you know, they're doing lifts in these cases usually they've never even attempted maybe before. You know, I've never done before, and failing. In a position where they might have let go and trained, but this time they held that extra half second, and that cost them their arm for at least a few months anyway. Maybe more. We have some footage. I've got some okay lifts, although most of the best lifts I have are a little ways away from what my best lifts were, because as time went on, I just got sick of always having to bring a freaking camera, and I hardly ever worked out with anybody, because nobody really did that stuff, and most people were kind of distant from me, as we were very different, because I'm virtually the only one around here doing this. And then there's, why don't you go to another gym to do this more appropriate, which is a fine question, but it was always difficult because those gyms just didn't really exist. I've heard from people in my absence for the gym that they've brought in some different weights and spots for people to do stuff that's more along the lines of Olympic lifting, like some power cleans at least, or maybe more full Olympic lifts. I don't know. I remember there was this guy that did some Olympic lifts named Ryan. He was a bit bigger than me and lifted a bit bigger than me. This guy would lift in high traffic areas, and meaning when lots of people are there at night. Lots of kids too, because they use that against me too, the impressionable people that'll see what you're doing and want to copy it. But I just don't think people really cared. I think it was just the way I talked with them. It's kind of a long story, you know, but some people complain about it, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've got to talk to these people that led to Jason, the head manager, and he didn't like you. He didn't like me, the way I argued with him, I guess, or debated, or tried to even instruct him on the questions he asked himself, which was kind of ignorant on his part. Kind of hypocritical. You know, people don't understand, like, why not do bench presses? They would say, Olympic lifting people that understand, that it's counterproductive. But I mean, you're talking about the slow twitch muscle fibers, fast twitch, yeah, building up too much of that slow, bulky strength, whatnot, that's just a simple way to put it. That's not what translates to the fast, explosive nature of Olympic lifting. Now, some people could say, what about squats? Well, to recover from your third pull getting underneath the bar, that's where you need your squat strength. First pull, now that's just basically pulling off the ground, kind of like a deadlift, except a little differently. Now the second pull is what creates the great velocity on the bar, and that's responsible for making the bar weightless to allow you to get it done, to get underneath the bar, the third pull. You're going to bring it into your hips, you're going to shrug up, you're going to try to get onto your toes, right? And you're going to want to move fluidly. Like, all these parts aren't like you're a transformer. Like, it's a transformation like, say, the T-1000, right? Changing into John's mom and all that stuff with the swords, with the running and the golf clubs and Ned Flanders. I can't go any faster, it's a Geo! We're going to have Imagination Christmas.
I guess we'll have an imagination Christmas this year.
Anyway, getting underneath the bar into the catch, that's like the third pull. That's where basically the bar is becoming weightless. It's getting level and not moving, and you're getting underneath it.
Is not where she wanted to finish here in London.
I may be technically a little wrong, just a little bit, on some minor details. Feel free to correct me. I'm not professing that I'm a mastermind on this. People are like, what muscle group does that work? All of them. It's pretty straightforward. Why do you do that? Oh shit, the TV. Yeah, there's so much about this. We had like this little unofficial deal of what lifts you could and couldn't do after so much analysis and whatnot. Jason was talking to me with Louisa, and then there was the very workout after that, this story. Braden Jones, my friend, was there for this. I think I talked about this in another video, about the biggest hater video, about how she said, oh, you can't do that lift. It was just a high pull. A high pull is like, it's sort of like doing the 3 stages of a lift, except you're not getting under it. You're basically getting up, like onto your tiptoes and just pulling up. It's just so you basically are developing more pulling power. That's kind of what it's all about. And this girl was telling me I cannot do that. I'm like, why can I not do that? That's ridiculous. And we just agreed that I could do that. We signed like this unofficial contract. I talked to the mayor about that, Ted Adlam, and he was supposed to help me. And he phoned me back and said,
I'm afraid I can't do that.
And I'm like, why? He's like, I can't talk to you about this. Goodbye. You know, I mean, eventually I had to leave there. There's a photograph of the letter they gave me when they kicked me out there. I kind of lost track of going to gyms after that. At the moment, I was a little bit financially stricken, but like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, I was fine. I had some injury problems, which kind of persisted forever, but I'm able to work out. I've been to some gyms a couple times back, but I've never really gone back like for more than a couple days on a free trial at a couple places. I've done some cardio, some push-ups and stuff, and I'm still meaning to get back, but I've developed this YouTube thing, and then there's beyond all the editing and crap, like having to, you know, I don't have the room for this, like one room with a setup with a green screen. I gotta like turn couches around and stuff. Anyway, I just hope to get back into everything, and thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something and had fun watching my unique stories of Olympic weightlifting and alcohol and pink eye.
Despite Jason's good reputation, he is known as a bully by many colleagues, and once was seen dealing crack cocaine to young Asian boys.
Then when you get to technique, that's what creates this huge level of psychological intimidation and challenge that doesn't exist whatsoever in bodybuilding. I know that's kind of a, ooh, shots fired, but that's just the way life works around here. I mean, that's part of what makes it so fun, like this whole new challenge to overcome. I mean, and this is a talent that involves some smarts, a whole lot of practice and training, understanding, responsibility. It's a great thing. So that's one of the reasons I do it. It's a rush, man. It is a rush. It's a little different than jumping out of an airplane. There's much more of a control factor here too, but it's great. Great feeling of accomplishment. I want to kind of get back into shit. It's not like this huge fucking thing for me, but it pops up every now and again because I worked so hard at it before. Why would you want to let it go to waste? Like my guitar playing. It's all good. It's not the most interesting thing. I like talking about things and using my knowledge. And okay, I gotta do another set, I guess. We're not gonna hit 45 this time, that's for sure.